Okay. Hey, shut up. Shut up. 117 kilometres. Hello, fellow CarNut. Welcome to the MG ZS EV. Now, first thing I had to do when I jumped in the car was to see how much mileage I had to play with, because it's full electric only, yeah? In fact, at $49,490, it is New Zealand's lowest priced full electric vehicle. Yesterday I ran it around a bit and got down to about 30 kilometres of range, which, yeah, was exciting. I've never looked so hard at a fuel gauge on a car as I have at the range gauge on this. Now, I haven't got a fast charger at home. I'm only ever using a regular 3-pin power point on the back of the freezer in the garage. There's a lot of shagging around with cables, of course, with electric cars. Gotta bloody pick up cables and unplug them, get them from around bloody pot plants. And of course, it's no fun when it's raining. Put the plug back in. Nope. Get the rainwater out of it. I've found on previous electric cars that I get about sort of 10 kilometres of range added every hour that it's plugged in. So I plugged this thing in last night at about 9 o'clock. It's now, what, 11 o'clock the next morning, so what's that, 14 hours, and it's added, yeah, pretty much just under 100 kilometres of range in that time. So it's not quite doing 10 kilometres an hour. So my biggest worry, of course, is that I'm going to not have a long enough overnight charge to allow me to travel the next day's distance in the MG ZS EV. But that won't be today. I'm going to be relatively short in my drive route today on this review, and 116 kilometres is displaying now, should be ample. Accommodations are good. It's got electric seats, they're heated, it's quite comfortable. The seats aren't particularly supportive, but for the class and price point that this car is at, it's pretty good. Pretty good. It's got a nice touchscreen here, which is Android Auto and Apple CarPlay enabled. Funnily enough, I think it's the electronics in this EV which are the weakest point. They're a bit laggy. All the buttons are a bit laggy. Turning on the stereo.
Small medias maybe hold 3,500.
Turning on the navigation, entering phone numbers, adjusting the climate control, which is really pretty naff actually. The climate control does not give you climate control, so you don't have 16 to 25 degrees as a range. You just have a snowflake at one end, and what's at the other end? A red snowflake, and all you have is a scale between the blue and the red. So you kind of have to count the number of bars of blue or red that you want to get a temperature that you're happy with. So it's not very intuitive to use. Similarly, the fan speed is a bit slow to respond. So the iconography also on the heating ventilation control display here is also very difficult to see. It's white direction arrows on a green background for where the air is going. So this could be cleaned up a bit in terms of its visual presentation, and certainly, like a few other buttons in the car, it is laggy. It's got a full-size electric sunroof here that opens in a number of stages. So I've just opened the cover there, but it's also got the massive opening that goes right out to the back seat. In fact, to show you how long that sunroof is, look how long it takes to actually close the blind. Now, while we're pulled up here, I thought we should go through the specs because, there's a few of them. Battery capacity is 44.5 kilowatt hours, maximum power 105 kilowatts, maximum torque 353 newton meters, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, 8.2 seconds. Okay, so what does it say about charging here? Emergency 24-hour 3-pin portable 8 amp charger. maybe that's what I've got in the boot here, 33 hours full charge. It takes 33 hours to charge it from 0 to 100%. A 50 kilowatt charger to from 0 to 80% charge, 45 minutes. So go to your regular, public charging station. If it's a 50 kilowatt charger, you're going to get 80% of your charge in 45 minutes. Quoted maximum range on this vehicle is 260 k's, but we all know, as a regular Joe or Joan blogs, you're probably unlikely to see that full range. You might see 250, you might see 220. Anything over 200 kilometers, probably you're doing all right. Is that enough? Well, completely up to you. That's the thing about electric vehicles, I think, is it's working through that equation of, yes, this is the range that I can actually get out of the actual vehicle I'm buying in the actual conditions that I'm driving it in, and this is my charging habits, or this is the accessibility I have to charging. This is what I'm going to discipline myself to do every day, every other day, every week. And that's kind of a difficult situation for some people to get their heads around, because up until recently we've only ever driven petrol or diesel powered vehicles, and we know that within an hour's driving of pretty much anywhere you're going to come across at least one or two petrol or diesel stations where you can gas up again. Not so at this point with electric vehicles, of course. You've got to take on that headspace of thinking, I've got a big trip tomorrow. I've got to make sure I'm absolutely juiced up tonight, because tomorrow won't be long enough for you to juice this thing up and actually complete the journey you were after in the first place. So you've got to be premeditated about your journeys. You'll be premeditated about when you do your charging. Like your cell phone, it's a pain in the derriere if your cell phone goes flat during the day. Well, I tell you what, it's an even bigger pain in the derriere if your car goes flat. My advice is just charge it every night. If you're doing 30, 40, 50 kilometers a day, charge it up overnight, 8 or 10 hours, you're going to basically be back where you started, which is great. It's just those longer journeys, or those times where you can't charge it overnight and you get 2, 3, maybe 4 days of running, and suddenly you're down to 30 kilometers of range, and that means you have to go to a public charging station to get a charge done in a timely manner. So I haven't been to a public charging station, and I'm not really that keen to sign into one, because I don't know, you just kind of, what do you do for 45 minutes? Even if it's 45 minutes, what do you do for 45 minutes? You don't sit in the car and read the newspaper, or go and have a coffee and another pie or something. I mean, I don't know. I'd rather just charge it at home and try and keep up with the vehicle's demands. Now, one thing I know you're all itching to see is the engine. Well, it's not really an engine, it's a motor. So let's take a look under the bonnet. This is what you get under your bonnet these days. I've got no idea what any of it does, except, well, that's some sort of coolant arrangement. That's some sort of braking arrangement. Here's your windscreen washer bottle. Here is a battery, a regular battery. There is some more coolant. There's a whole bunch of very cool looking electrical cables with shock warnings on them. Oh, jeepers. Just falling. No idea what any of it does, but it does look pretty cool. Generally, it goes okay. It goes out in the open road okay. It's very quiet, of course. All you do here in terms of propulsion is this electric motor winding away there. That's slightly, I don't know, slightly irritating in that it sounds loud enough for me to be conscious of it at all speeds. And it sounds kind of like a car, a regular internal combustion engine car, that's stuck in second gear. You're going down the motorway at second or maybe third gear. It sounds like it's revving too highly. The fact that your speed, as your speed increases, your motor speed stays linear to that and increases with it. It does make the journeying a little more tiring, because you hear this higher and higher and higher pitched whining noise coming across as you pick up speed. So at 100 kilometers an hour, it's quite a pronounced all the time, where of course in a gearboxed car you can just get to the taller gears and the engine revs drop. So otherwise it's very quiet. The wind noise is low, the tyre noise is low. It can be quite a restful way of travelling in terms of interior cabin ambience, but as I say, the only thing you do really hear is this motor whine, which is slightly irritating. But anyway, that's not unique to the MG. It's a function of all electric vehicles. Performance is adequate. You know, it's got 3 different driving modes. There's an eco mode, a normal mode, which is the one that starts in every time, so it defaults to normal mode, and there's this sort of a sport mode. And all they really do is dull in terms of the eco, or excite in terms of the sport, the throttle response. So yeah, the fact that I'm running around in normal now, it's quite responsive. If I wanted to go a bit more sportily, I just click it to the sport mode, and yes, there's a bit more pickup straight away. And if I want to eke out my battery, I'd go back to eco mode. So there's 3 driving modes. Similarly, there's 3 different modes in the regenerative braking side of things. I've got it in 3, which is marked as heavy, so I've got as much regenerative braking as I can. There's also a moderate and a sort of a lightweight regenerative braking. I like the heavy and all, or the most pronounced regenerative braking in any electric vehicle I drive, because I love that one pedal driving. The fact that you don't have to dance across the brake pedal often to slow down in normal driving circumstances is really cool, really cool. This car does have pretty good regenerative braking, particularly in the heavy setting, although it's not as pronounced as some I've driven, and it also only slows to a crawl. It doesn't come to a complete stop. And I prefer electric vehicles that have regenerative braking, of course, to come to a complete stop, because again, it's one less transaction on the brake pedal that you need. Like many electric cars I've driven, it's just kind of, it's a transport device. There's no real feedback from any of the controls. There's no real excitement from driving it. It's just transport. It gets you there, which is, well, I guess that's a large part of what a vehicle needs to do, isn't it? Gets you there. But it doesn't stir the blood. It doesn't make the pulse race, even if you drive it quickly. In fact, if you drive it quickly, I've found that actually, rather than making the pulse race because of excitement, it makes your pulse race with a bit of trepidation, because I've found that it's a little bit, I wouldn't say untrustworthy, but difficult to get a handle on in terms of how it does handle. It's a little bit dead in the steering, and the road holding, I suspect, is not particularly good compared to other small SUVs and certainly regular cars. It's got a lot of weight to it, obviously, with the batteries and things on board. In fact, what is the weight of this thing? I'll just look at the spec sheet. Weight. Oh, okay, 1,532 kgs. So it's not that heavy, actually. 1,532 kgs. But it certainly feels heavier than that in corners. In fact, I had a moment a couple of days back on a wet road, a newly wet road, and it was quite slippery. And the car understeered at a corner where, frankly, I wouldn't have expected any other vehicle to have understeered. It did give me a little bit of a moment, which I wasn't expecting. It's a small SUV, so you sit up quite nice and high, nice slender A-pillars, lots of light in the cabin. This big sunroof helps a lot with light. Rear seat passenger accommodation, pretty good. Good leg room. Yeah, it's comfortable. Seating's nice. As I say, it's not particularly supportive, and it could do with a bit more under-thigh support particularly. I have noticed a couple of little things that worry me a bit. As I say, the infotainment system and some of the electrical switches are a little bit laggy, a little bit slow to respond to a push. I also got a tyre pressure monitoring system warning come up, or fault come up, when I was driving down the motorway yesterday afternoon. Doesn't seem to have made any lasting impact on the vehicle. There's no recurring message or red flashing triangle saying warning, warning, no skull and crossbones on the dash. So I don't know, that might have been just a little glitch, but you don't want glitches, do you? I did notice that sometimes it makes a kind of strange ticking noise when it feels like it's almost about to apply the ABS brakes, particularly if you've got the cruise control set and you pull up at a light or some situation. I forget exactly what happened, but the response of the adaptive cruise control seemed a little bit aggressive, even on the motorway. Oh, see, taking my foot off the brake then, it's sort of a little bit of a jerk there. Look, these are little tiny facets of operating the ZS EV around the place. They wouldn't be a barrier to owning one. I think for the price, $49,490 on the road, it's probably quite a compelling case actually. You've got all that great EV torque that you get. You've also got regenerative braking, so you can be quite relaxed in the footwell. You're not having to constantly dance across the brake pedal for every little bit of slowing down that you need to do. It's certainly easy to drive. It's certainly quite calm to drive. It's a very nice, pleasant, ambient environment in here. So what do we think of the looks of the MG ZS EV? Well, when I first saw it, my initial impression was take it down the road to Mag and Turbo and get some 19-inch rims on it, because the wheels and tyres just don't fill the guards quite enough. It's not an ugly vehicle by any stretch of the imagination. It just looks a little bit under-wheeled to my mind. And then of course there is that whole MG thing. I mean, it's not MG as MGs used to be, okay? It's got nothing to do with England except a bit of a design studio over there and a little bit of input in terms of the, I guess, the aesthetics of the vehicle and the brand, but it's a Chinese brand. But who really cares? I mean, particularly with an electric vehicle, I think it could be made by, I don't know, it could be a Black & Decker, or it could be a Breville, frankly. It's really just like any other small SUV. It's got things like a parking brake that stays on when you hit the foot pedal and bring the vehicle to a stop. It'll have an auto hold on that and it releases nicely, and it also has a memory function for that too, which is something that things like Mazdas don't have, so that's a good thing for the MG. It could be a Japanese or even one of the lower cost European vehicles inside. So you're not really dipping out on anything. You don't feel like you've been hammered by the vehicle specifiers, you know. You're not missing out on any comfort and convenience items. You've got lane keeping assist, you've got parking sensors, you've got rear view cameras, you've got adaptive cruise control. Yeah, it's all pretty conventional, you know. Oh, except for those. Look at that. They're not silicon damped. That's the only thing. I literally just discovered this. They are not silicon damped like you expect grab handles to be these days. And also I noticed there's no illumination available on either sun visor mirror, you know. Apart from that, everything else is pretty conventional. It's actually very well finished. Yes, there's a couple of little bits of glue or something on the side of this this air conditioning vent here that I wouldn't expect to see in a $50,000 car, or in fact any car these days. And apart from a couple of little electrical glitches that I've encountered, like it hasn't always locked the doors when I've been outside and pushed the button, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's me not standing in the right way or holding my tongue in the mouth the right way, but apart from a couple of little electrical glitches like that, and slow capacitive response to the touchscreen and some sort of laggy buttons and an unfamiliar presentation of information on the screen here, particularly with heating, ventilation and air conditioning controls. Apart from those little things, it's actually been pretty good. So yeah, well done MG, or whoever you are, SAIC. You've got a pretty good car on your hands here.